Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is one eyeshadow palette from every indie brand I own. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be a look at, if I had to pick just one eyeshadow palette from every single indie brand that's in my collection, this would be my selection. So this is not necessarily all of my favorite indie brand palettes. If you want to know, then you need to stay tuned for tomorrow, because then I will share with you some of my all-time favorite indie brand palettes for sure. There could be a bit of overlap here, but I definitely have more indie brands in my collection than I could feature in a favorites video. So this is just from every single brand that I have in my collection. I've picked one, and that's what we are looking at today. I might have forgotten something. I hope I didn't. But yeah, I have got quite a stack here, so let me get to it. First up is Nomad, and this is the Haunted Europe palette. So I've got several palettes from Nomad. I think I've got 6 of them by now. I have a lot of them in this style. I have one of the smaller ones, the Iceland palette, but I have their Cloud Forest palette with the really bright shades. I have one of their Valentine's collections. I have the Halloween one they did in 2023, the Ghost Town one, but Haunted Europe is still my favorite. I think if there is a palette from Nomad that I think they just aced, it's this one. It's got your pumpkin shades over here, and then you've got your cooler tones in the middle. I feel like this should have been over here. If we could have moved it up, I would have liked it a little bit better. But yeah, it's a stunning palette. I really enjoy the Nomad formula. And the reason why I'm showing Nomad first is because I know that a lot of indie brands, when you think indie, you think foily, really intense pigment shades. And with Nomad, I feel that they have one of the most easy to work with eyeshadow formulas if you're a beginner. It's a little bit thinner than most indie brands. The shimmers need a little bit more building up. But you all know me, if you've been here before, I prefer a buildable formula over something that's kapow in your face. And I think that this will also work for people who have more mature lids, who might deal with things trickling down their face. This is not that super intense, foily sort of shimmer that we will see examples of that, because I also like that kind of vibe. But if you're someone who really struggles with making those things stick, if you have a lot of issues with creases, or if you have a lot of lines around your eyes, then I think Nomad is a brand that really has a good formula that a lot of people can enjoy. And especially if you're a beginner with makeup and you don't know how to blend eyeshadow very well, these shadows blend themselves. You don't need a lot of technique to make this look pretty. And that's why I really rate them very highly. They are one of my favorite indie brands. And the Haunted Europe, I think, is just an incredibly good palette for that reason. I don't think it's still available anymore, though. And that's why the stack here today, I definitely have some palettes in here that you can no longer get. I have some small things in my collection as well. This palette, again, has stunning packaging. It's by Game Beauty, and it's their Victory palette. I haven't heard about Game Beauty for some time. Have they done anything recently? I don't know. But I bought the first 3 palettes they came out with back when I was really into trying some indie brands. So I have the Adventure, I have the, what's the second one called? Fantasy palette, and this is the Victory. And this is one of my picks in my collection for a warm tone palette with a pop of teal. This is what the palette looks like. It's got a mirror on one end, and I love how the color stories inside the Game Beauty palettes really go with the packaging outside, because you also have those oranges with a pop of blue. And I just really enjoy it. This is a brand, of course, that it's inspired by video games, and that's how they create all of their products. And this brand is also available through Monolith, in case you're wondering. I haven't seen these game-inspired sort of palettes on there, though. Their newer stuff is on there. These older things, I'm not entirely sure of. But yeah, this is my Game Beauty pick for sure. This brand no longer exists, because that happens to indie brands as well, because they are smaller companies. They also go defunct pretty easily. And this is Aether Beauty. This was a hype for quite a minute. Their formula was specialized on infusing it with crystals and I don't know, precious gems or whatever their marketing ploy was. And this is the Moonlight Crystal palette. I kept this one in my declutter in March over the Rose Quartz because I like this a little bit better. Spoiler alert, I may have pulled the Rose Quartz from my declutter pile and put it back into my collection. Because since the brand is no longer around, I'm like, why would I do away with it? It's a really pretty palette, so I don't have to get rid of everything just for the sake of getting rid of it. You know what I mean? So here is the Moonlight Crystal, and I really enjoy that one. And yeah, it's blue, greens, and purples. We all know I like that kind of color story. And the Aether Beauty formula is really stunning. And, well, I should say was really stunning because you can no longer buy it. You know, now I'm sitting here filming, I'm thinking, Persona, I didn't bring up here. I think there are brands missing. I tried to be as complete as possible, but I was just going through my drawers, like selecting the one palette I wanted to feature. And I think I may have skipped a couple of things. Oh well, I hope you don't blame me. You will see my entire eyeshadow palette collection in August, so don't worry about it. Then another smaller thing, and I was very much torn because What's Up Beauty sent me this, their Desert Moon and the Dragon Eye palette. All was sent in PR, so thank you to What's Up Beauty for sending me these beautiful palettes. But I think the Geodes is my favorite of the three I have. The Desert Moon I actually decluttered because I didn't love the color story. And the Dragon Eye is really, really pretty, but if you're giving me such a good neutral color story that skews a little bit more cool tone with purpley things inside it, yeah, then I'm going to go for that. It does have some warmth down here, but it's got a really nice balance and it's a really good neutral palette, but with some interest because some of the shimmers have a bit of a flip, and that's why I like it. I know the Dragon Eye is a really good one if you want to try multi-chromes, but for me, this was the first thing from What's Up Beauty that I tried that it made me go like, wow, this brand really has something going for them. Is this an indie brand? I think it's up for debate to some people, but as far as I know, Natasha Denona isn't really owned by any other big companies. So that's why I also just want to take the opportunity to rave about the I Need a Nude. Who am I kidding, really? But yeah, this is the I Need a Nude eyeshadow palette. And I think she's lovely. This is one of my favorite neutral palettes at the minute. It just really, really is. And I love the Natasha Denona formula. You guys know that about me. Natasha Denona, in terms of color stories, isn't always that interesting, though. And it's definitely more of a luxury price point, of course. But as far as I know, they are independently owned. So that's why they get the mention here. Another palette where I'm like, is this an indie brand? I think they are, because this is Lunar Beauty. This is the only Lunar Beauty eyeshadow palette I own. So should I put them in here? Is that fair? But I had another brand where I only had one palette and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to feature it here. So this is owned by Manny MUA, of course, the influencer. And this is a really pretty, like, smoky eye palette with some cooler tones. It's got some warmth over here, but then I love these rosy things we get in here. It's got some stunning shimmers. I love the blues in here. It just has a lot going for it. So that's why I want to give a shout out to the Lunar Beauty palette. Again, this is the Eternal Eclipse. The new one, I don't really need. Like, Lunar Beauty is not my favorite formula, so I like the one palette I have. But he's not come out with anything else that I really felt I needed to put my money towards. This one, this is a good contender to be showing up tomorrow as well when I show you like my top 10, 15 favorite indie eyeshadow palettes. But this is Fantasy Cosmetica. This is the Rogue. I think this is still the old packaging. I don't have the one with the stained glass. Oh no. But yeah, this is easily one of my favorite palettes I tried last year. One of my favorite palettes in my collection. It has blues, greens, and purples. It's got a grungy vibe, but it's also light enough that it works on my skin tone. The shimmers are incredibly special. Fantasy Cosmetica can do no wrong, it seems. And I'm very much still tempted to buy the two palettes that are missing from my collection, which are the Bard and the Sorcerer. But yeah, the Rogue is really good quality. It's my favorite of the entire line. A brand that is still very much alive, but this palette sadly isn't. It's by Unearthly Cosmetics, and it's the Fall Magic. This one already says Unearthly. I still have some that say Alien Cosmetics as well, because I got into the brand when they still had their old name. Here we have, I think, one of the best like grungy neutral color stories you can ever find. They now do one Cold Fall Magic, and they also do the Sorcerer Smoke. And both of those palettes have elements of this palette in, because that was kind of promoted as like the updated version of this. But I don't feel they're quite the same. The Sorcerer Smoke still looks like something I might like in the end, but it's not quite this. So I'm very sad that they no longer do this, but from Unearthly, this is the favorite one that I have in my collection from them that I've tried. Again, is this an indie brand? I don't know. I already mentioned this brand yesterday, but Cosmetics. I really like the packaging here. It's got this like hexagon style with this geometric print on it. This is their Divine Skies eyeshadow palette in the shade Rodin. And this is like one of the best neutral color stories you can ever find. I mean, in a way, this looks like something Fenty Beauty might do. But I feel like Cosmetics is a little bit more skewing indie compared to other brands that are also at the same price point. It's very hard to get if you're in Europe, of course, but this was very much worth it. I went out of my way to purchase this, and I still really enjoy it till this day. I definitely need to pull it out and play with it again, because this is a really lovely palette, and I do really enjoy a neutral. But at the minute, I'm really more into warm tones than I am into these neutrally tones. But this is definitely one I need to put onto I need to go back to this palette and use it again pile. For sure, for sure. Let's get the baby things out of the way. Again, is this an indie brand or not? I think we can have a discussion about that. But this is by Lisa Eldridge. Again, another brand that I think, like I should have known, that it is owned by a super duper huge company. But I did read that she did get some sort of investment to grow the brand. But I feel like then nothing is going to be an indie brand. You know, if you look at where they got their money from, you could say. So here we have Vega, which is my favorite of the two I have. I also have Sorcery, and this is very much a lovely cool tone color story that I hold very near and dear to my heart. You could also pick these up as singles if there are just a few shades that you enjoy, but I really like the look of this like vintage style packaging. The pans are removable as well, so you can rearrange these if you'd like. It's the taupes with like these really nice shimmers for me that really do it for this. The blue is really stunning on the lower lash line. The black is great as a liner. It's not like the blackest black on the planet, but it's definitely a stunning one for sure. A brand that no longer exists. Michaelu Cosmetics. This is the Richcraft palette. This had a minute on YouTube, and I definitely bought two of the palettes. One of my favorite neutral tone palettes from an indie brand is by this brand. It's the Fawn palette, but these you can no longer buy. And the website of this brand was a little bit shady. I think the owner seems to have some sort of level of dyslexia or something, because there were so many spelling errors on that website. I found it very interesting, but yeah, this palette is very unique in my collection. You get some like plummy things with reddish browns and then these like grungy greens. This shade here is absolutely out of this world pretty. I don't think anything else has been made, which is why I had to feature it here. But sadly, you can no longer buy this. Ah, yes. Of course, I had to mention Cosmic brushes. I don't only have indie brands that have been around for some years. I also have some newer things, and this is Winter Wonderland. This is what they did at the end of 2023, and I knew the minute I saw this drop, I need this in my life. So the Winter Wonderland from Cosmic Brushes is another blue, green, purple color story that I adore. It has some multi-chromes, it has some more interesting shimmers, it has some more shimmers as well compared to the Serenity, which is the other one that I've tried. And this is just really good formula. Because of the different shimmers that you get in here, the price of these have gone up. The Serenity is definitely a lot cheaper than this one is, but I think the color story is just wonderful. If you say indie, then I think these really bright, pungy sort of color stories is what you think of, and Menagerie does the best one. This is the Feral palette, and I played with this again in March or April, and I really enjoy it. It's got the greens, it's got those like pinky tones, this blue, you get neutrals, and then you get a yellow, a red, and a purple. So stunning, and these are so pigmented. You need to be careful with these that they don't stain your eyes. That has definitely been my experience with some of my Menagerie palettes. Make sure you double prime your lids. So what I like to do is I prime my lids to make eyeshadow stick with just a clear eyeshadow base at the start of my makeup routine. And then right before I apply eyeshadows like this, or any eyeshadow really, I tend to use a MAC paint pot first, and then I set that with a bit of eyeshadow to have a good base for laying these down. And I feel that if I do that, I get a minimum amount of staining, you could say. If you don't like that, if you don't want your eyeshadows to stain, then maybe stay away from Menagerie, because they tend to be pretty intense and they're very pigmented shadows. Not for the faint of heart. Another great neutral color story. Sydney Grace, The Love's Journey. This is a palette I didn't even buy. I didn't buy this palette. I placed an order on Sydney Grace together with a friend over the summertime. And I don't know how, but she got an extra one. And when she sent me the products I had ordered over to my place, she popped this one in. And it was a complete, unexpected love affair. Of course, I knew I love Sydney Grace eyeshadow because I have so many of their singles. Like, I think 75% of my single eyeshadow collection is Sydney Grace because I love them so much. Again, a US-based indie brand, so a little bit more difficult to get. But guess what? They are now available on monolith. So you can get this a little bit more easily if you're in the EU than, before. And what I love about this is you get a full row of cool tones, you get the neutrals, and then you get the warmth. A perfect neutral color story for sure. And that bottom row of cool tones, let me tell you, it has my heart. And I like this better than the Heaven on Earth, which is the one that I actually purchased. So it's got the lovely formula from Sydney Grace that I know I love. Again, especially for the mature ladies out there, or mature guys. If you're a mature guy watching this, then hi. But if you're struggling with these indie shadows staining and falling down your face and creasing on you, try Sydney Grace. They have amazing mattes, and their shimmers are more of like a satin quality, leading towards metallic. So they are very impactful, but they aren't like the kind of eyeshadow that's going to crease on you or going to fall down your face. Very workable formula. Love them. If you do like that very impactful eyeshadow that I just mentioned, a lot of indie brands having, I have a Polish drugstore brand for you. Again, are they indie? I have people ranking them as, listing them as indie brands, but we have Glam Shop. And I decided to go for one of the colorful things. Not sure if this is still available. All of their palettes are limited edition, so whenever you find a color story, you just need to snatch it up and go. They have released something new. It's like a grungy, matte, cool tone color story. It's like if the Sigma Cool Neutrals was more cool toned and more matte. And it's got 15 shades. It looks really stunning. I'll talk more about it in a new makeup releases in June, but it looks stunning. It only has one shimmer though. But this is the Nice Weed. That's apparently what the name translates to according to Google Translate. You get like grungy greens, these like mustardy yellows, and then these really stunning, foily, intensely pigmented shimmers to go with it. And this was released back when we got all of the like green palettes last year around this time. We got the Yucca from Natasha Denona, and you had that palette from Nomad as well. Like, we got a bunch of these, and I think Odin's Eye had something similarly as well. This is the one thing from that entire array that I picked up, and I love this because the greens in here this is predominantly green. And the Natasha Denona is a beautiful palette. I've seen it in store, it swatches beautifully, but there's only 2 greens in that palette. This has more greens, and it's only a 9-pan. Speaking of color, I think if you say color nowadays, I think the brand people think of is Blend Bunny. They are known for doing their gradient color stories, very often rainbow heavy. They have another one that has just been released in collaboration with Alice Atlantis, but my favorite one from them is still the Surge. This one in particular has been discontinued because the neon pigments in this palette could no longer be made, so it was discontinued. But this has everything I want from like a rainbow color story with a bit of grunge. So you get your neons, you get your shimmers, you get your deep tones, you get your midtones, and you get some pastels. I'm so sad they had to discontinue this because the ingredients just aren't, like, they can no longer buy those anymore from their manufacturer. So that's why they had to discontinue it. But it's my favorite Blend Bunny palette for sure. Now here I was a little bit on the fence because I have 2 Adept palettes still in my collection. And the Ninhydrin I like a lot, but the Minka just has a color story that sucks me in. And I really want to try the Amy Loves collab that they have. This is pretty much an all shimmer palette. You get 2 mattes here, which I feel don't really go with everything, and especially the top row is what I like. I don't love like these 3 shades. Like these are both like more multi-chrome heavy, but I love the top row. It's just not a standalone palette for me. And I feel that a lot of Adept palettes aren't standalones. These are incredibly flaky eyeshadows. If you love your flakies, go for it, because if you feel like, you know, those are good things for you, then go for it. But for me, these are the only 2 Adept palettes I still have, and then hopefully I can add a third because it does have some more mattes, and it feels like a more well-rounded color story with the Amy Loves one compared to something like this. But I do enjoy Adept for sure. They do some lovely things, and color story wise, the Minka is just my inner magpie. Just really comes to life when I look at that thing. Another brand where I have only 1 palette, but it's been a while since I mentioned it on this channel, and I just want to give it another shout out. This is the Raven's Castle palette from Makeup by Lisa. And this is a UK-based makeup artist who also tends to sell a couple of products. And this is what it looks like. Cool tone perfection, if you ask me. Cool tone perfection. This is so pretty. And it's such a lovely color story. It's a lovely formula. It's got some really nice toppery things in. I really like it, so I knew I had to give it a shout out today. Yes, from Ensley Rain, I've now tried 2 of their palettes, but the one I would pick is the Lens of Enchantment. The other one I have is the Cold Moon. That one has the flaky shimmers that creased really badly on me. The Lens of Enchanted I felt was a lot more workable and a little easier to make looks with. You get 25 shades, and I felt every column in here was its own little color family. So it was very easy to put looks together. It's got some really nice, interesting duochrome sort of shimmer things in here as well. Everything works. Everything shows up. It has the nice gradient from light to dark, and it's a blue, green, purple color story. What more can you wish for? Maybe for it to be cheaper, because this is a pricey one. Next up is Shroud, and I think my favorite Shroud palette is Moonfall. Not formula-wise, then I would go for the Arcana, but this color story just has my heart. Again, blue, green, purple color story. What else is new? It's got a really nice intense shimmer with this one that did come cracked, so everything has a bit of a green cast, I feel. But I love these like tealy blues that we get. It just, undertone-wise, the mattes and the shimmer don't really go together. They don't really go together. But I do really still enjoy the formula, and I love what Shroud has to offer. And where would we be without this guy? The Gloss Gods Gal on Jupiter. I knew the minute they launched this that I was going to fall in love, and they now have a warm toned option that I also really like the look of. But this is what it looks like. It has one holographic sort of shimmer in here. It's got enough mattes for you to make a look. It goes deep enough. It has enough shimmers, in my opinion. Some of them are really stunning, like taupey sort of leaning things as well. It's a very nice cool tone color story, and I love that so many of you are saying, I had never heard of this brand before I saw you mentioning it, and I've placed an order. And yes, indeed, they are very much slept on. And these are, like, if you're looking for, like, really highly impactful eyeshadow and you're in the EU and you don't want to, like, faff around with a lot of shipping and handling fees, definitely try out this brand because they deliver. And they are not as expensive as some of these indie brands from the US. Another EU-based indie brand that I really, really enjoy some things by, but not everything, is Odin's Eye. This is their Solomona. This was the original palette. This is no longer made. And some of their later things have been a bit hit and miss for me. So Odin's Eye isn't very consistent in terms of quality, I feel. But this one is just stunning. You get those like yellow tones in here. It's like very mustardy. And then you get this like really nice like grungy section over here with a pop of lilac. It feels so random, but it's so beautiful and such a stunning palette. So from Odin's Eye, I'm sorry, you can no longer get this. And I wish they would bring it back. I really wish they do. But I think they had a similar issue as Blend Bunny, where they could no longer source the pigments. I think that was the issue. Another recent find, a lot of people have been raving about Glamlite for a while, but I have only really been loving them ever since I tried this. This is the Ghostface Lives palette. I tried the Cake palette a few years ago. I finally decluttered it last year. It just really wasn't my thing. I didn't love their shimmers, and then I tried this and I was like, oh wait, that's what everybody's going on about. So I now have some more Glamlite to try. Since this is the only one that I've actually tried and reviewed and put on my face, I am wearing another Glamlite palette today though, because I am testing them out as we speak. But this is another great cool tone color story with some lovely shimmers in, and I do really enjoy it. Another big guy then, this is the Bella Beauté Bar Smoky Glam, another brand where I only have one palette. I think I may want to try their spring release as well, but they seem to do a lot of pinks with greens, so not sure if I need that per se, still undecided. And they do these really big palettes. So this is a 6x6, so 36 shades with cooler tones, with some pinks and purples in. It's got some warmth, but really not that much. It's a pretty palette for sure. I did feel that this could have been like better edited. Like this could have been half the size and I would have been just as happy with it. So I don't think it had to be that big. Plus I wanted more shimmers from this one. And the final like bigger palette is another brand that is no longer around. This is Slush from September Rose Cosmetics. And this, for years, has been my favorite rainbow color story. So I do apologize if you were thinking, well, what's a good rainbow color story for fair skin? It would be this one in my opinion, but you can no longer buy it. The brand owner has said that if she like feels the urge again, she might bring it back, but for now, the website has been closed down. So you get purples, blues, greens, like orangey reds, and then your pinks over here. It's not like primary colors of the rainbow. I feel I don't suit those very well, but these softer things that have a little bit more of a neon pull as well, it's like neons to pastels almost, but like a row of something deeper, works really well. Plus, this has shimmers in. Not all of the shades in here are like really good quality, but in terms of like a rainbow color story, this has been my pick for years. From Glaminatrix, I have tried two palettes. One of them I decluttered. It was their neutral palette that came out, which just didn't pull very neutral on me. It was, I don't know, I didn't love it as much as I had hoped, and I kind of felt about this way the same way, the Nocturnal, but it is very pretty. We sort of get little like two colors that go together, but like with the Shroud, I feel the undertones don't always go together. My favorite part of the palette is actually this, the neutrals, like the mustardy browns with that gold. That gold shimmer is just life, and I really enjoy pairing the purples with these blues, but I kind of ignore this, even though like these greens would be nice with the blues as well, and they can go with the purples as well. So there are options. I like the periwinkle in here, but it's kind of like mismatched to like compared to everything else. But yeah, this is one of the first things I tried from the brand. I do like their formula. I would like to try some other things from the brand, but as far as like a standout eyeshadow palette in my collection goes, like I like the color story, it's very unique, but it's perhaps a little too unique for me, for my liking. And then finally, a classic, I have to do it, Melt Cosmetics Marte. You knew I had to feature a Melt palette in here because I love them, and this is one of the best ones. It's still on their website. Yes, it is still on their official website, so if you were desperate to pick this up, they have brought this back several times. So again, I'm not sure how long they're going to keep it around for this time, but it's got like the greens with the blues and then these really nice wine red colors. It's really stunning. I love how the shades of that we get in the palette are out on the skull as well. I think that this is when Melt really peaked, and I don't think they can outdo them again. However, other brands have duped this kind of color story since then. But yeah, for what it is, I still really think this is one of the best palettes in my entire collection for sure. Yes, I definitely forgot to bring a couple of brands up here. I forgot to bring my Sigma palette. I forgot to bring a Persona palette. I think from Sigma, I think I would go with the new mod, the rosy one. I have the enchanted and the rosy toned one, so I would go new mod, which is, I'll pop a picture up on here so you can still see it, even though I forgot to take it up here. From Persona, I would definitely go for the Identity 1. Identity 2, I kind of tried to declutter. I put it in my declutter pile, pulled it out again because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it yet because I do really enjoy the formula. So Persona is up here as well. The Identity 1 I would go for. And I think that's it. I can't really think of anything else that I might have forgotten. Oh, well, I think I could have like featured a lot more. But yeah, stay tuned. Tomorrow I will be back with my top 10 to 15 indie brand eyeshadow palettes for sure. So I hope you'd like to stay tuned for that. I, of course, do regular content with all of the many eyeshadow palettes I have. So you can look forward to other eyeshadow palette related content, that's for sure. And then I really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. Thumbs up the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos every single week and I hope you'd like to stay tuned for more. And then I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye.